Okay, so you saw the difference between the two cocoa powders, natural and Dutched. And then we're going on to the next one, the first one in the second row, and that's cocoa butter. So the first thing I want you to do is pick up one of those little pistols and hold it in your hands. Try to break it. You see it's very, very hard. And then just take it and keep it between your fingers and rub it. And you can see that it melts below body temperature and it feels very creamy and silky. As you probably know, cocoa butter is used extensively in cosmetics and lotions. It's great for the skin. So then take this little piece and pop it in your mouth. And don't chew it, just let it start to melt. It's not going to be a wonderful flavor, but I do want you to understand that cocoa butter itself has no chocolate flavor. But you need to understand its plasticity and its melting point. It helps understand why we want to cultivate the good crystals. This is tempered cocoa butter. So it has good crystals, and so it's very hard at room temperature, but it melts smoothly below body temperature. So what I want you to learn by putting it in your mouth is not that it's going to taste wonderful, but if you stay with it at the beginning, it's kind of a weird feeling in your mouth. It doesn't begin very pleasantly, but if you just stay with it, it will melt and disappear completely. Unlike other fats that have high melting points, for example, shortening, will leave a waxy feeling in your mouth. Cocoa butter will not. So once you're done with the cocoa butter, you can put a little cocoa in your mouth and a little bit of sugar to clean your palate. It's nice to have some bread alongside you for palate cleansing. So we're going to skip over the sugar. The sugar has been necessary to taste some of the prior items. But now we're going to go on to the very middle of the tray, the one that says 61% couverture. This is the one that we use for tempering. This is the one that I sent home with you for your tempering and for your modeling chocolate. So first we have to remember what couverture is. I touched on it last week as I touched on the 61%. So 61% is the percentage of any chocolate is the amount of cocoa bean. So what the percentage tells you is actually not a lot, because you have no idea the percentage of cocoa butter versus cocoa solids. What you know by the percentage is how much sugar it has. So 100% minus the chocolate percentage for dark chocolate tells you roughly what the sugar is. Actually, it tells you almost exactly what the sugar is. So what I want you to do with this couverture, you may have already tasted it, but I want you to understand how to taste chocolate. First thing we're going to do is break it. So you can even hear that. I don't know if it came through in the video. But you can even hear it. That is a sign of well-tempered chocolate. It has snap because it's filled with good crystals that pack tightly together. So I would like you to take a little piece, put it in your mouth, and don't chew it. First, just put it on your tongue. And you want to let this melt and notice the mouthfeel. This is a very important part of chocolate tasting, is noticing how quickly or slowly the chocolate melts. And then you can describe the flavor. This chocolate is the chocolate that we use for enrobing. So normally we don't want it to have a very strong flavor because we want to show off the center of the bonbon, the ganache, as the flavor, and this is the container. Next to it is a 64% Grand Cru chocolate from Valrhona. Grand Cru means it is a single source chocolate. This happens to be their product called Tainori, and it comes from the Dominican Republic. It's 100% from the Dominican Republic. The particular shape happens to be a Valrhona trademark, the Fev, what they call a wafer. So I do want you to do the same thing with this one. This is 64%, so it has a little bit less sugar in it. But do the same thing, put it in your mouth, notice how it melts and what flavors you detect. The ingredients, there's no added ingredients for flavor. If you notice any flavor difference among these three chocolates we're going to taste, it has to do with the bean, the terroir, the fermentation, the drying, and then of course, the composition, how much cocoa powder and how much cocoa butter, but there aren't added ingredients to have it taste a particular way. It's the way that the product was handled. The last one that I have here is, in the first row, is a chocolate from Cho Chocolate, 68%. You probably noticed that right away when you break it, it's actually harder to break. The darker the chocolate usually, the harder it is to break. It has more cocoa butter in it, generally, and so if it's well tempered, the good crystals are packed in tightly. So let that melt in your mouth and try to describe the flavor notes and how they're different. So you have 3 dark chocolates from 3 different companies, 3 different beans. The only one we know for sure from Valrhona, we know that's a single source chocolate from the Dominican Republic. The other 2 don't tell us where they're from. They could be they're surely a mixture of beans.